Welcome to Vermont Today. I'm Terry Girolman, and my guests this month are Peter Diamondstone and Jane Newton. Peter is running for governor of Vermont, and Jane is running for Peter Welch's seat in Congress. They both are representing the Liberty Union Party. Behind us, you can see the Vermont State House, where hopefully Peter will be working beginning next year. Peter.
Probably is a page.
Oh, well, I hope not. The Congress in Washington has just passed a $700 billion bailout for Wall Street. Bernie Sanders voted against it, and Peter Welch voted in favor. Where do you stand on this issue?
The whole of that expenditure of $700 billion and the way that's being handled is wrong, in my view, including the earlier bailouts of AIG and Bear Stearns and the others. There's another 230 or so billion in those earlier bailouts. It seems to me that this bailout does one thing. It restores the status quo. That is, the people who were in charge before, who were messing things up, will continue to be in charge, and there's no reason for anything to get better unless they think that they can make some improvements through legislation to regulate, but I don't think that's an answer. I had offered two solutions. One appeared in the Burlington Free Press September 28th, when I suggested nationalization of the banking industry, using that. Actually, it would have been almost a little over $1 trillion, including the earlier ones, the earlier monies. Using that money for the United States to own the banking industry. We, through our government, would own the banking industry. But what do you do about local banks? Well, all the local banks in the United States under that system would become credit unions. There would be no other kind of banking in the United States except credit unions in neighborhoods and a central bank owned by the people of the United States. The other answer is one of those things, you know, maybe someplace in the middle where we could use that money to finance the people who are in debt and who can't pay their mortgages. And of course, that if you do that in a blanket way, you may be helping people who have $3 million homes to pay off the mortgage on their $3 million home that has only a value of $2 million, and they may owe still $2.5 million on it. So maybe there's something that we have to do in that kind of setting to make sure that we're not just paying off the homes of wealthy people who could move someplace else. But we do have to deal with the problem of homelessness that we ought to try and avoid by subsidizing the mortgage payments. And that would do the same thing as the bailout, because ultimately the money that we subsidize the borrowers with would end up coming into the banking system. So, you know, it might take a little longer, but this system isn't working anyway, and it's not going to work. All this is going to do is put money in the hands of bankers, big business, and save their positions. But I don't think it's going to help the system at all.
When you speak of nationalizing the banking system, we should point out that the Liberty Union Party is a socialist party, right?
It's more than that. We, of the 5 people on the statewide ballot, 5 of the 7 on the statewide ballot are not only members of the Socialist Party, but I'm an officer. I'm a member of the National Committee. Our party chair, Darce Lake, is a member of the National Committee. Jerry Levy, who is an auditor candidate, is a co-chair of the National Party. And Mary Alice Herbert, who was the Socialist Party vice presidential candidate 4 years ago, is the chair of the editorial board that puts out the Socialist magazine. But people who are just members, Jane has been a delegate to the Socialist Convention. Murray Goima has been a delegate to the National Convention. So we are really deeply embedded in the Socialist Party, and they have endorsed our candidacies. So we are not only candidates of Liberty Union, we are endorsed by the Socialist Party.
Would it be fair to also say that you're a Marxist?
In large measure, with some variations, but there are so many varieties of socialists that's a really important question to answer, because our party comes out of the Debs tradition, which would now be cast, I suppose, opposite the Harrington tradition on one side and the Draper tradition on the other. And there are many, many people who call themselves socialists who aren't socialists at all. They're social democrats who believe that they can work through the Democratic Party or through any of the capitalist party to achieve it. And if they become the dominant party, then they can legislate socialism. That's not my view of things. We can make legislative reforms that tend towards socialism, but my belief is that socialism is something that has to come out of the heart and souls of the people, and you can't legislate it. And Debs put it, he said, you know, don't ask me to lead you to heaven, because if I can lead you in, someone else can lead you out. And there are many other traditions that take that point of view. There's vanguard communist parties that take the position, we can lead you in. And I'm not part of that tradition, and I'm not part of the tradition that's social democrats. Democratic socialism doesn't mean electing socialists, although that's moving in the right direction, but it means people take control through their own organizations of the major means of production and distribution. And one of the targets that I would have in Vermont would be the nuclear power plant.
We could probably classify Anthony Polina and Bernie Sanders as social democrats, don't you think?
That's right, and I use that as a derogatory term, by the way. I mean, the social democrats of the world have done nothing but terrible things. And Adolf Hitler is a product of the social democrats. I mean, the social democrats, that's the worst place to be, in my view.
Well, comparing him to Hitler, that's very much debatable. But
oh no, I wasn't comparing them. I just said that it is the activities of social democrats around the world that have been disastrous for socialism.
So on a continuum from right to left, we can say that the social democrats, Bernie and Anthony, are sort of more in the middle, and as a Marxist, you're more on the left.
Right, and when I say the middle, I mean that they function in essence through the Democratic or Republican parties, or what I would call the capitalist parties. Sometimes you'll find them in some independent form, a little bit separate from the Democrats, like the progressives. But I see the progressives as just being kind of an arm of the Democratic Party, the left wing of the Democratic Party.
But now relating this to the nationalization of the banking system, I thought it was important to point out that you're going to compensate the owners with the $700 billion.
No.
Oh, you're not going to compensate?
No.
The stockholders, they don't get anything?
No. They've gotten all they're entitled to. They've gotten their profits, and they've gotten all that they're entitled to. I don't see any purpose myself to that. But the $700 billion would be to finance that banking system. It would not be to I would talk about taking Vernon, the power plant there, by eminent domain, and that would be with compensation. I don't consider that a socialist act. I consider that a move towards state capitalism. And even the nationalization of the banking system is a move towards state capitalism. But I see that as further towards socialism than taking over Vermont Yankee.
Or you would take the banks by eminent domain, right?
Yes, but they're not worth anything. So there would be no compensation. It's not like Vermont Yankee. The banks are worthless. Unless we give them the $700 billion, then they have value again. So if we don't give them the $700 billion, we take them over because they're valueless.
Okay, that's a good point. I didn't understand that. But now your second solution is to use the $700 billion, instead of giving it to the multi-billionaires on Wall Street, the 1% of the population, you would give it to you would indirectly give it to the owners of the property, the people whose mortgages are going to be foreclosed.
Foreclosed, yeah.
Most of them are middle class, right?
Yeah, and I'm not doing this with any great enthusiasm. That's a kind of a step back for me, but I really don't want to see people become homeless. And so maybe I have to think about this as maybe not finance everybody, because there are some of those people who can take care of themselves even if they lose their wealth, their big houses, their multi-million-dollar estates. But at some point in the economic spectrum, there are people who can't pay their own way if they lose this house. And those are the people I think I'd be willing to finance if I had to step back from nationalizing the banking industry.
Now,